We moved into this house a few years ago, and this giant 14-foot tall wall has just been blank with a TV mounted on it ever since. So in this video, I'm building a whole new wall with built-in shelves, a fireplace, a solid wood mantle to freshen up the space and make the whole living room more cozy. First off, I have to cut the floor out so the new wall can sit right on the subfloor. The floor joists below run with the new wall, so I have it sitting centered on one of them for support. I'm getting the outside frame of the wall up first and securing it to the old wall so it has a little movement once it's all finished. Once I have a few of the studs up, I can start framing out the shelf openings. Now I'm putting up some 2x8s across where the mantle is going to be mounted. I don't want to have to worry about how strong it's going to be or where I can mount to when I go to do it, because the mantle is going to weigh close to 100 pounds. Filling in the studs above the mantle header, I can start framing out the fireplace box now. The fireplace is going to be a flush mount, so I'm using the required measurements that came with the fireplace so I can make the opening the right dimensions. I'm mounting the shelf openings to the old wall and putting blocking in between each stud to really help stiffen up the wall. The TV going on the wall is going to be a 75-inch TV, and I want to make sure that it's mounted very secure to the wall. All this blocking will do the trick and make sure the lag bolts have something strong to go into. With the wall fully framed now, I'm going on to the electrical. First is a receptacle that will be behind the TV for a nice clean, no cord look. The panel that the power will come from is in the garage, so I'm going to have to go up in the attic with the wire and run it all the way back. This house has stairs in the garage up to the attic and even some lights to somewhat see what I'm doing. I'm going to poke the wires up through the ceiling, taped to a piece of rod, so I can start the search in the insulation to find them. And I crawled through the little hole for no reason. They were right in front of it the whole time. I secured the wires with clips to the trusses and I ran the wires down the wall to the panel inside the garage. I had a couple open spots in the panel, so I was able to make the fireplace its own dedicated circuit and a circuit for the TV receptacle and the lights. Underneath the living room, it's a crawl space, so it makes it easy to get the wires down and across the room to go up the wall to add a switch for the lights. Fishing the wires up the wall was a pain, but I was able to eventually get it and run the wires back across underneath and up into the shelves. I'm adding one of these boxes that holds itself onto the drywall, so I can add a nice new dimmer switch for the shelf lighting and it'll make it able to set the perfect brightness. Then I'm finishing it off with a nice cover to keep everything looking clean. Wiring the lights wasn't that bad to do, just going into the wall and up to where the next shelf will be so the wire can be in the shelf and I can have the lights built into them. With the panel wiring all done, I wanted to check and see if everything works, so I temporarily wired up a pot light to see. As you can hear, I was excited that it did. Yeah! With that circuit working, it was time to put a receptacle in the fireplace circuit and check if it worked too. Doing the insulating, drywall, taping, and painting was a lot of time and a lot of footage to show, so here it is in probably too long of a time lapse of it all. It was also popcorn ceiling that was dirty and old, so I decided, hey, let's sand it all for 6 hours straight and make it look nice and smooth. It was worth it in the end, but wow, what a mess to do. I've done a little bit of taping with renoing our first house we had, but nothing like this, in a room full of giant windows and a skylight shining on it. So a lot of time was spent sanding and checking with the light to try and get a perfect finish. Went with the grey colour from the main wall, and we liked the original colour of the other walls, so I borrowed a paint scanner to get the code and got the same colour made up to give it a full refresh. After sanding all the popcorn ceiling smooth, I gave the ceiling a few coats of primer and then a nice white to freshen it up as well. For a split second, I was thinking I messed up the fireplace hole, but it was just the cord catching and it fit perfectly, and I secured it in place with some screws. The glass just slips on and it has a little clip that holds it in place. Now on to the shelf backing. I'm going with some MDF fluted wall panel veneered with fake teak. Quick scribe to fit my slightly off square tape corners. The centerpiece will have holes drilled in it for the wires to come through for the lights in the shelves. Scribing the last pieces for a perfect fit, and I made some cutoffs work with the seam behind the shelf to not have to go buy another box, so at $100 a box it adds up. Onto the mantle now, squaring up and cutting to finish length, and the long process of sanding, which I'll only show you a few seconds because everyone hates the sanding part of woodworking. I wasn't sure how I wanted to mount the mantle, so I looked at a few different options and ended up going with French cleat, for a nice clean look with nothing showing and it just floating there. Each one of these says it's good for 400 pounds with the tiny screws that it came with, so I'm using 2 kits and some proper screws, so I'm not worried about them being strong enough to hold the weight of the mantle up. You have to recess the piece that mounts to the mantle to give it that flush look on the wall, so I'm measuring my depth to get it just right and then routering a channel out for it to sit in. Pre-drilling the holes is a must with this hardwood, or you'll snap the long screws trying to put them in. With no one here to help and it being too late to ask a neighbor, I set up the miter saw sand perfectly and went for it, just to realize I didn't route out enough material on the mantle for the cleat on the wall to be able to slip up and in, and then slide into the mantle cleat. So it was back to the garage quick to take the material out I needed, and let's try this again. Not gonna lie, I wasn't 100% sure it was fully in, but I went for it and took the stand away, and would you look at that, it was sitting there perfect. I decided to paint the trim on both windows to give them a nice fresh look as well. Finish off the night, I put the trim back on that was already in there. I just removed it to clean it up and give it a couple coats of paint so it looked good as new. I couldn't find a stain I liked fully, so I started mixing stains, and after a bit of creating, I finally got what I liked, and I think it goes with the floor pretty well. I had some Rubio monocoat left over from previous projects and had just enough to coat the mantle with it. It's a nice easy finish to put on and looks great and easy to maintain. Now for the final part, the shelves. I'm making these out of good one-side plywood with a 2x4 frame, keep them simple and hollow to have the pot light wiring box inside of them. I like to cut all the pieces out at once so I can get an assembly line going to make them. The shelves are pretty simple with mitered edges to look clean and just glued together with a few brad nails to hold them until they dry. Screwing the rails to the wall for the shelves to just slide over. There's no brackets or anything so they can give that floating look. The wiring box hides nicely in the shelf and puts the connector for the pot light in the right spot for a nice easy connection. Like I've used the whole project, I'm using my laser so I can match the shelves on the other side perfectly with the first side. The pot lights have a dimming feature with the switch, and also when you turn them on and off and then back on again, within 5 seconds they'll use an amber light ring to give a nicer look at night. And here it is, the finished project. I forgot to film painting the shelves, but I went with a nice black paint on them. I hope you enjoyed and feel free to subscribe for more videos to come. Testing, testing, testing.
Can I do it too, Daddy?
Yeah, talking to it.
Testing. Testing.